Well, it's official. Trump won. So now what? What can you expect as a gun owner going forward over the next 4 years? What are some realistic goals that gun owners can expect from a Trump presidency? What are some other ones that are not so realistic? And maybe even one or two things that fall somewhere in the middle. Maybe you see it as a bad thing, maybe a good thing to some. Whatever the case is, we're going to talk about a number of these different things that I believe you can expect to see under Trump as it pertains to gun rights. Now, I believe this is the most pro-gun ticket that we've ever elected to the White House, at least in modern times, which I know is a pretty bold statement, but I'll make the case for that as well. Now, of course, I want to hear your opinion because they will be strong on things like this. And so wherever you fall, leave that opinion down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. Let's go and get into it. Now, like I said, I believe this is the most pro-gun ticket that we've ever elected to the White House. Now, I know some of you are instantly thinking, well, what about Reagan? Well, at the end of the day, Reagan came in as a very strong Second Amendment supporter. He wrote, I think in Guns and Ammo in 1975 in an article, anybody that talks about taking guns away or outlawing them altogether, it's just ridiculous. He was, of course, a victim of an attempted assassination too. So you would think at that point, he would say, okay, yeah, people need to be armed, right, in order to protect themselves. Well, he kind of took the opposite approach to what Trump did, right? Trump got shot. He said, fight, 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 and no talk of any type of gun legislation that should be passed, right? Now, of course, this is him trying to get elected. Would it have been different if he was the president? God forbid, we hopefully even never see that again. But what I'm trying to say is that he didn't come out and say, okay, we need to ban ARs because I almost just got taken out by one, essentially. He blamed the guy. Reagan, on the other hand, took a little bit different approach. So, of course, the 1986 Firearm Owner Protection Act, that did a lot of good things for firearm owners, right? But it also made full autos essentially super expensive, illegal to own in some cases. They had to be, registered, and you have to go through a whole list of different things in order to make sure that that gun is now legal. They essentially made somewhat of a registry. They did make a registry of these guns. So if you go through and you find great grandpa's Thompson SMG, or you find a grease gun or an MP40 if you're that lucky, and it hasn't been registered, well, chances are you won't be able to register it. There was a certain date in which those older guns had to be registered. If great grandpa thought, I'm not going to do it, or maybe I'll do it at a later time, chances are that heirloom could be taken away from you if somebody were to ever find out about it. Reagan was pro-gun coming in, and really he was a sponsor of the Brady Bill and the assault weapons ban, two things we see as very anti-gun. Trump, one of the very few presidents that's ever openly admitted, yeah, I have a concealed carry permit, and yes, I carry it on me. He's talked about the guns that he owns, an H&K and a Smith & Wesson revolver, right? And then, of course, we've talked about, and I'm not going to rehash this whole thing, but I talked about just a couple of weeks ago, the good and the bad things that he did in favor of gun rights. I believe this time around is going to be way more good things. I don't think he's going to take a step in the opposite direction because of some of the blowback that he got in his first term. And then, of course, there's this picture with J.D. Vance. Now, how many politicians are willing to take a picture with an AR in their hands and it not be for a photo op? I'm looking at you, Adam Kinzinger. Bruh. So I believe this is the most pro-gun ticket we've had. Now, what can we realistically expect going forward? I think one of the first things they have to do is a national carry law on the books. Reciprocity, constitutional carry, it needs to be the law of the land. These bills come forward and they die off. Well, now you're probably going to have the House. We still don't know as of the date of this video. You got the Senate and you got the White House. So every single day is going to count. And I believe passing a national constitutional carry is going to be crucial, man, because there's no reason that if you live in this state where you're free to exercise your rights, you should not have to worry as an American citizen, if I cross that border, oh, now all of a sudden I'm a felon because I didn't ask them permission. That's not the way it should work. No American should have to worry about that whatsoever. Wherever you travel in the United States, it should be the law of the land that you can travel freely and with your firearm. And that is something I think and believe they really can actually get passed. Now, Vance has done a number of different things that are really highly supportive of Second Amendment rights. I mean, from banning the 94 Gun-Free Zone Act, which is, again, something I think could happen. I think we get a little less likely as we go down the list, but still, I believe this is something that they could actually do in giving every teacher across the United States the opportunity to protect the kids they love, right? And whether that's with training or with the permit or a combination of both, giving every single teacher the right to do that, I think is huge. Also, a national stand your ground law. I think this also is something that falls in line with reciprocity and concealed carry. If they're able to get it passed, finally, where you can freely travel across the United States with your firearm. Now, should I have to worry about, oh, is this a stand your ground law state? So I'm somewhere I have the right to be. I have my firearm on me now, right, which is fantastic, but I got to worry about trying to run away from somebody that is threatening my life. That's another good thing that could get passed and maybe even thrown in with a national constitutional carry type of bill. The other thing, removing silencers from the NFA altogether. I think this would be the one item that we could actually get in there with the Hearing Protection Act if we're able to kind of resurrect that in a way, because it is such a beneficial thing. And look, we know that statistically people are not using suppressors to commit crimes, right? It's so statistically insignificant. It's not even on the radar, right? And so giving people the opportunity to get those things, buy them, not have to have any kind of waiting period or anything like that. I believe this is, again, something that could get passed. On the other side, what are some things that probably won't happen abolishing the ATF?
Both of them can shoot right through this 75-round clip.
Why'd you lie? What the heck?
This is something, again, J.D. Vance has been in support of. And look, your boy's a supporter of that as well, because we know that they love to just come up with different rules that basically circumvent our entire legislative process and all three chambers and make those the law of the land. Now, of course, a lot of them get shot down in Supreme Court after you've already freaked people out, you know, essentially with like the pistol brace ban and, you know, bump stocks, all that kind of stuff. So regardless, they are just terrible when it comes to that stuff. They really are just they're like a swing state, right? You never know which way they're going to flow. Most of the time, they're going to go against gun owners in that regard. And so just terrible. But I just don't see that agency getting defunded. I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't see it happening. The other thing I don't really see happening is them removing full autos from the Firearm Owner Protection Act. I don't see it. Now, you may be thinking, why would you ever want that? Well, there's so many awesome and historically significant weapons, right? For instance, the PPSH-41 that I bought, it's as a parts kit, but when it comes in the US, they chop these things up, so essentially they can't be fired, and then you got to go through an entire process in order to get these things running. Well, this is a piece of history that they have to torch in order to bring them in the United States, right? Also, the costs of these things are just ridiculous. We know that gun owners keep to themselves, right? 99% of gun owners keep to themselves. They use everything in a responsible way at the range. They train, they at least go shooting. Some of them train, whatever, but we know that 99% of them are responsible. But this is just something I do not see passing at all. And the other thing we know that is not going to get passed with pretty much 100% certainty is an assault weapons ban. You're not going to hear about this kind of stuff for the next 4 years. That's going to be really nice. I know it's going to be like crickets on this kind of stuff. You're going to be like, oh man, you know, I mean, that doesn't mean you can be complacent. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not saying that at all. But there are some benefits, right? And some really good consequences to having an election like this where you don't have to necessarily worry about these types of things. Again, holding them accountable 100%, 100%, right? And you always have to stay vigilant. Don't take this the wrong way. But I do not see anything like that even being brought up by J.D. Vance or Trump or any Republican really, to be quite honest with you. Just like our cats and our dogs in some of these cities now, they are protected once again, and we have that to look forward to. Here's the other thing. Now you still have the Supreme Court, right? That is in play. And so you can have judges that favor, right, the Second Amendment and stand with those constitutional rights. Making these things the law of the land is going to be crucial, though, right? Not just saying how much you're going to protect the Second Amendment, but really getting this stuff done. You only have 4 years, right? Trump obviously cannot be reelected. So he's got 4 years. Every single day is going to matter. And every single day, we got to stay vigilant, make sure things aren't being brought up. But here's the last thing I will say, and that is, fortunately, you're not going to see any kind of scares, any ammo or band scares or anything like that, and gun shops going, just being obliterated and, no inventory, and then, higher prices or price gouging, really. Fortunately, you're not going to see this kind of knee-jerk reaction if some kind of unfortunate tragedy happens, right? We know these things do unfortunately happen. But I believe that our rights are in great shape now. They just can't waste this opportunity. This is pretty much golden. Assuming that they do get the House, the Senate, and the White House, they have to move forward. And I really believe that we have not only a president, but a vice president that really believes in getting the Second Amendment passed through. And we know that Trump did what he said last time. I believe that he will this time as well. So that's kind of what I would expect as a gun owner. And of course, this is all my opinion. Whether you agree or disagree, you let me know down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.